C. 2019 TVMA1H. Poster. Far in a dystopian future, the human race has lost the sense of sight, and society has had to find new ways to interact, build, hunt, and to survive. All of that is challenged when a set of twins is born with sight. Episode Guide 1. Godflame. November 1. A journey of survival begins when an army of witchfinders attacks the village of Alkany. All episode. Message in a bottle. November 1st, 2000. A special gift for the twins sparks tension in the group. Voiceover off.
When you're blind and watching movies, what will you find? A blind superhero whose superpowers are acting like he's not blind. A sighted actor over dramatically touching people's faces. Or maybe the whole joke is that they're bumping into different places. A spectacular, macular generation. Tunnel vision to your television until they off this movie with audio descriptions. They're movie buffs who know their stuff. You'll be thoroughly entertained. Join Sky and Melissa throughout film history and Citizen White Cane.
Hello and welcome to Citizen White Cane.
Hi.
This is the podcast that speaks for all blind people, all disabled people, and everyone who's ever seen a movie.
Oh, that's pretty big.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were speaking for all people.
It's definitely not ironic. Yeah. It's important that we just decide who's going to speak for entire groups of people, and then we just let them do that. That's important.
Oh God, that's so much responsibility on my shoulders.
No, it's no responsibility at all. No, obviously not.
No, not at all.
We do watch movies, and though we watch movies, but today we watched the first couple episodes of a television show, which is like a movie since they're about an hour long each. So
yep. So two of them combined is about 2 hours. So yeah, it's basically a movie. Yeah. I brought up the TV show that we're talking about, C, on AppleTV Plus.
Yes.
I brought that up. I've been excited. I've been following this show honestly since Apple TV Plus was announced at the keynote last year in the summertime, because I really don't give a crap about Apple TV Plus, but this show caught my attention because it was about a bunch of people who are blind, basically.
Right.
And also, I mean, Jason Momoa is the lead, so yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it is like, because usually we talk about a blind character that's in the movie, and I'm even gonna have to figure out how to title this episode, because in the titles I've been putting the blind character's name, and for this one there is many blind characters, so it's actually, there is just sighted characters that you could, because there's so far 3 of them.
Yes, everybody in this show, except for the 3 who are not, is blind.
Right, which is makes it very interesting. It's definitely an interesting thought experiment. And we'll talk about how we generally feel about, like, what if they did a decent job. But I definitely, it's definitely an interesting idea to, like, think through. It's something that I definitely have thought about before, like, what would it be like if everyone was blind? How would the world function? Definitely did not think it would function like the show does, but it is still an interesting thing to see, because they have to create an entire world around it. So
and it's interesting because we have blind people have things like Braille, but in this world Braille doesn't exist because they don't have access to Braillers. They've probably forgotten what Braille is.
Yeah.
And I think that the way they've come up with communicating makes sense for the world, and it's also a whole lot easier to transport and make and just have than Braille.
Right. Well, because they have these, like, weird little
it's a not
strings.
It's a not language.
Yeah, which also kind of, I kept being like, how many words, because I believe that you could make a language out of knots, like Morse code is a thing, so it kind of makes sense to, like, have a way of reading through knots, but you would have to have much longer strings.
Oh, I know. They
like,
read they read these, like, florid letters and, like, messages and everything that are written in like 7 knots, and I'm like,
exactly.
Hang on,
I'm like, that would be like 3 letters. Like you're just, and then they'll react to it and they'll be like, oh, it says this. I'm like, you literally just this was like an inch of the string. There's like no way this had more than like 4 letters on it. How are you so like, how much did you get from that?
But I have to say it is really cool. It's
it is.
really
I like
interesting.
the idea of that as a language would be cool to read, and I like that as an idea. I wish that it was more realistic how long it was, because it's very distracting how small they are. And also the other thing I thought about is, how do they know which side to start on? It's not clear.
Oh, I know, right? Well, maybe they've just... No, that doesn't work. I was like, maybe it's just been decided that you read from left to right, but if you flip the string around, maybe it's context clues. I don't know.
Right, because do you start reading and you're like, oh, this seems like it's a backwards, like,
flip it
word.
around, I guess. Well, but okay, so that's the not language.
Right.
Basically, the premise of the show is a virus in the now times has
a
wiped
virus
out.
right now? What a weird thought, though.
I know, right?
How could that have happened in the 21st century?
That's just crazy. We just have no idea how that
It
even
seems
feels.
so unbelievable.
No idea. Anyway, a virus has wiped out most of humanity and its vision.
Right.
We have
wiped
lost the
out
ability to see.
all of humanity save like a couple million people or something, which, by the way, is like not ever gonna happen. Like, that's completely unbelievable that there be 7 billion people, and like that's not how diseases work. That would never ever happen. Like,
Well, in this world it does. And so the people who are, we don't know about the people who are left, because this show takes place thousands of years after this has happened. And so the people who are now humanity have rebuilt and have made another society.
Sort of.
Sort of.
Though it's unclear if it's thousands of years, unless you constantly, because I was trying to look up, and it seems, and everything I was finding was saying that the show doesn't actually explicitly say how long it's been since it happened.
I'm just guessing thousands of years, because we've literally gone back to like people live in villages, there are tribes, there is
Right. Well, that's why I thought it was less time, because it's so like, because they couldn't have figured out a better system at that, like, that seems, which we can get to, but like it does feel like it's only been like a few generations to me, that because they haven't figured that much out. But that's my reading, because they don't explicitly say one way or another, so I think we're both just guessing.
Pretty much. But basically, we have gone back to a village system, a tribe system. There is a form of centralized government. We've got monarchy. We have a monarchy with Queen Kane, who seems to run everything.
Kane.
How could you forget about Queen Kane? Oh, we're going to talk about her.
I definitely remember her. I forgot her name is Kane. It's like a cane.
Queen Kane. I didn't catch that. Oh my God.
I don't know if it's intentional, but maybe.
I don't think so, but I hope it is.
She represents
is
like
her first
blindness.
name White? Queen Kane. Wouldn't that be great? So there is some kind of a form of centralized government, and she has an army at her disposal, and she has a force of people called witch finders.
Right.
I'm not super clear about what their actual job is, because it's like they're not. Are they? I mean, obviously, in the show now they're looking for the children, but are they just looking for people who can't see, or are they looking for people who are who can see, or are they looking for people who are going against the queen? I don't know, but they're there. They're like the antagonists.
Because witches are, I think there is a weird kind of witch, like there are witches, and they don't necessarily have vision, because one of the characters is considered, they say, is a witch, but then she's also blind, like Paris, who's the we meet her as a midwife at the very beginning of the...
And she's also accused of being a witch.
Right. She's accused of being a witch, which I guess it's unclear how magic, or if there is magic that functions in the... Because I don't think they really explicitly say... It's kind of hard to figure out exactly how much of the magic things are...
Yeah, I'm not really getting a huge supernatural vibe from this show, as far as like magic. Like even like even like with Game of Thrones magic.
Well, because it takes place in the real world on a time frame, so that means that like if you're gonna make that the plot, then somehow you have to make magic. There's be some reason that magic would then start existing. Because it still is within all of the real physical world rules that we have. And they could make it magic, but then, I mean, I guess they always could, but it would just annoy me. Because I'm like, but this is then just make it a different world where everyone's blind if you want there to be magic. Don't make it the real world.
I'm very glad, at least so far, that there aren't any supernatural elements in this show, because that's not what I wanted.
Right.
When I started watching this, like I don't want the super crip. I don't want the magical blind person. I don't want magic, because it just kind of, I don't know, it kind of cheapens it, and it makes it I feel it's kind of like a cop-out for something like this, because then you're not actually really thinking about the way that if you're gonna propose something like everyone being blind, and it's really boring if there's also magic, because then it's just like, okay, well then you're not doing the work of actually thinking through what that would be like, because you're also having magic, so that's not gonna happen. So yeah, in this society, I mean, it's kind of interesting, because everybody pretty much functions like, quote unquote, normal people. I mean, they're in an abnormal situation,
right?
But it's just really cool. And I was especially watching the second episode. I'm noticing more and more the dynamic of conversation, how that happens.
Yeah.
People will either be extremely close to other people if they're if they're trying to investigate or intimidate, or if it's love, or something like that people will be extremely close. Or people will have conversations and not look at each other. Nobody is really a lot of the times looking directly into people's eyes.
It's funny because into people's eyes. Though it did bother me how often someone would show up and they would face towards them. And I did that with my face, so I went away from the microphone. But like they would, instead of like when they hear someone, instead of continuing to listen with their ear, they turn, and I'm like, why would you do that? That makes no sense, because there's no reason, because the only reason why blind people would do that is to like say, okay, well, people want to see our face, like sighted people. So if everyone's blind, there's literally no reason to fit, because it just makes it harder to hear. Like, so you're just facing both of your ears away from that person, and that really bothered me, because it's like that is a very sighted person thing to like face towards someone. But I don't know.
I mean, I guess
they don't always do it.
No, and I guess I'm coming at it with the thought of like, if I hear a sound, from behind me or beside me or something, I might turn toward that sound.
Well, would you turn your face or your ears?
My first thought is my face, but I guess it depends on what the sound is.
Do you? Yeah, because I think I would always put my ears unless it was a sighted person, and I felt like they would be weirded out if I wasn't looking at them. Like, that's the only situation where I wouldn't do my ears. But do you feel like you would even if it was something that it didn't really matter that they see your face or not?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that my reasoning also comes from, I live in a world where I have some vision. So I suppose if I was completely blind, then yeah, maybe I wouldn't, because faces just don't matter.
There's just no relevance to it. Yeah.
What's the point? I mean, yeah, and my ears, I would need to, I use them to hear.
Right.
So yeah, so there is definitely some of that. I think that's just comes down to like visual language, film language. Like it's acknowledgement.
Right. But it is also like, I mean, though it does kind of bother me, because you could also do film language of just like, we want you to live in this world and really understand how this world works and really think through how the world would work. And I feel like if they were thinking it through, then it would be way more impactful to have them not just directly looking at each other or facing towards each other, because that actually puts you in the space. Like, it's really distracting that if you are thinking like, because I was like really trying to think it through, and then it was super distracting to be like, why would they do that? Like, and I feel like that really took me out of it. So
because when they don't, and two characters are having a conversation, it seems more real and more intimate.
Right,
No
right.
matter what they're talking about.
Yeah, it does. It's definitely, there's certain things like when characters nod, I'm just like, why would anyone nod in this world? Because you can't, like, nodding, I mean, I don't know. I was trying to Google it actually about how, like, universal nodding is culturally, but I can't imagine it would be any help if no one could see. Because the only reason why blind people would nod in a situation is because they know that that's culturally a signifier for yes, that people can see. But if no one can see, then there is genuinely no reason to nod, because it is completely inaccessible to anyone except for the person, and nodding is entirely a nonverbal communication with other people, and is not like, because emotions, that makes sense to me, like, because sometimes you have a close-up of like a character having an emotion, or when they're hiding something they can have an emotion that they're not expressing, or they're not talking to kind of make it seem like everything's okay when it's not. And that's very believable to me, because emotions aren't necessary. Like, I think sometimes, like, I know I have my emotions are even more facially like distinct, because it's not meant to be portraying something. It's like it's an internal thing that I'm not using necessarily to communicate as much as it's coming from my reality.
And the cool thing about this society is touch means so much more to them. Well, it's also that, and touch is just an everyday thing. But I think the neat thing about this show is, especially when two hands meet, that's a very important thing, and you feel it.
Right.
I mean, obviously they're taking the time to like put the camera on it and show you that it's happening, but you just feel it more in this show. It means so much more to have two characters holding hands, or two characters touching foreheads, or just being near each other.
Right. There is a lot of, it is kind of funny that they use it for intimidation, because I kept being like, make out anytime that they were doing that, because it definitely, but that's also just how it's me and anything where people are being intimidating.
Right. But we're used to, living in a society where most people can see.
Right.
And if I was going to intimidate someone, I might get closer to them, but unless I thought I was a real badass or whatever, I wouldn't get that close. Certainly wouldn't touch my face to theirs.
Yeah, that is, well, it is very aggressive when it's unwanted, like. But
he was probably, Jason Momoa's character, honestly, when he's intimidating in the second episode, he's intimidating another character. But I think also he's listening to their body, like listening to the other person's body. He's listening for their heartbeat. He's listening for their breath. He's listening for, I don't know, like the way they're moving in their clothes.
Actually, I didn't think of that. That makes sense.
And then feeling, well, is this person sweating? Is this person warm? Is their forehead pulsing? Like, I don't know, like, is that a tick for them? And he knows they're lying.
Right. And it's just like because your senses, you're a lot closer to being able to read them. Because I think that this show at least does try to think through, like, how silence affects blind people, and, like, how people, different ways in which people can do nonverbal communication that is blind specific. Like, I think it does try to, at least, I mean, sometimes it gets it wrong with, like, nodding and stuff, but, like, but I do think that it does try to, like, figure out if you can't, because not being able to hear someone is definitely, or when someone's not speaking, so you can't hear, like, their emotions, like, that can be really, I think, stressful. But it's also, like, everyone in the show at least can empathize, like, because I know I have a lot of sighted people just, like, in my life in the past who will just not communicate things and will be quiet and, like, be making some sort of facial expression or something that I can't see, and so I'm just like, what is going on? Like, I can't understand what's happening with you when you're making no noises at all.
Everybody, yes, I mean, everybody in the show, in the village, well, and the people in this world that we're living in, everything is very verbal. There isn't a lot of nonverbal stuff, because you couldn't do that. I mean, and maybe if you were close enough to somebody, or if you were married to somebody or a sibling and you just knew that person inside and out, you know, maybe you can tell if they make an angry face, or if, you know, if they smile or whatever.
Know what's going to, you could just know them predictively.
Right, you know what their reaction is
Yeah.
going to be. So basically, in the first episode, we meet Jason Momoa's character, Baba Voss. Oh my God, the names in the show are just insane. Yeah,
Don't understand.
Baba Voss. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like it. It kind of grows on me. The first episode, I was just like, "What the fuck is happening?" And then by the second episode, I'm like, "Yeah, his name's Baba Voss. That's his name. We're moving on."
I feel like I was weirdly the other way around. In the first episode, I was like, okay, kind of weird name, but I didn't really notice. I was trying to get into the world. By the second episode, I was like, what the fuck? Why is his name Baba Voss? That's very funny.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm was assuming that like Baba was an honorific. Like it is. It means chief, or it's a nickname or something, and his name is Voss, or his last name is Voss.
That's kind of what I thought too, but it also doesn't. I don't think it says specifically one way or the other. But I thought the same thing, so I don't know. Maybe it is.
Because at first I heard Papa Voss,
right?
And
it sounds like Papa.
Oh, okay, so he's father to somebody, and I was like, no, that's not right.
Papa
Anyway,
Voss.
well,
is Baba? Is that a
Baba is dad? I think
dad
in a couple of languages,
probably, yeah.
Or
Because that's one of the universals of languages is Mama and Papa tend to have a similar. Are similarly, because babies like make that noise, and so that's why it's the same in all universal language.
Well, and I mean that makes sense because like he's the main character. He's well, at least in the first 2 episodes, he is the main character. Going onward, I'm not sure. I think the duties are going to be shared by more characters, but in the first 2 episodes, he's the main character.
Yeah.
So and he's the chief of the village, so it makes sense,
right,
I guess, to have that name. Anyway, but in the first episode, we meet him, and we see kind of how combat works in this world, which is really interesting because the first thing I thought of was like, they're all blind.
Right.
What
are they gonna do?
What are they gonna do? Yeah.
Well, because I was just like, why is everyone so brutal? Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
The first episode and parts of the second episode are really. This is
so brutal.
It's really brutal. This is Apple TV's answer to Game of Thrones. I don't know if it's going to be nearly as successful. I haven't heard a peep about this show after it came out. To be honest, I know it's getting a second season.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool because after watching the first 2 episodes, I think I'm in. I think I'm going to finish this.
I will definitely finish it for the podcast, so that's good.
Oh, yeah.
We'll finish it for the podcast. But I do think, I don't know how I feel about it overall. But yeah. Do you feel like, what do you feel like? Because are you in just through fascination to find out what happens?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that having a show full of blind characters and not being fascinated. Obviously, I was gonna watch this show no matter what, and I think I would watch it. Maybe keep watching it even if it was a train wreck. I don't think it's a train wreck. There are definitely aspects of the show that I'm like, what the fuck, But for the most part, I don't necessarily think it's a train wreck. I think the acting is really good. I think Momoa is great. I think everybody is selling it and is doing a really great job. I love Paris. She's probably my second favorite character next to Baba Voss.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. It's very melodramatic. I think the brutalness also makes it hard for me to fully I will definitely watch it for this podcast. But I think that they never explained why blind people would have created a society that's so brutal, because it just has no logic to me. It didn't explain why that would have happened.
True, and maybe it will if we keep, as we keep watching, as we keep going on. Maybe we'll learn more about the lore in the world, or in the second season, maybe we'll learn more. But honestly, I think you can still be a bad person or a tyrant even if you're blind. I don't think that matters.
But it's so much more brutal than the 21st century is. So it's it had to become more brutal. But it couldn't just be the same amount of brutal.
Yeah. I mean, it's brutal because it's necessity. I mean, I don't enjoy watching the violence, but I kind of get it. as far as why it is the way it is.
Really?
I mean, so you're going back to, living an agrarian lifestyle, living in a village. There are people, there are animals that are going to come to attack you.
Right.
You have to defend yourself.
Make sense.
Yeah.
And the agrarian society, I guess for me, my problem was I will not buy that, like, that's what would have happened. Like, because we have entire infrastructures of all this stuff, and, like, people wouldn't try to maintain that. Like, it's just the 21st century has so much benefits that would have had to be completely disregarded by people who at the time would have, like, known about, like, because when it happened, these people knew about everything going on.
Yeah, that's why I'm curious as to, is this 1,000 years after the big event, or is this 1,000,000 years, or is this whatever? Because except for the city with the dam where Queen Kane lives, there's no human infrastructure.
Right. Which maybe would, if you did argue that people completely abandon all of it, which is where you lose me, because I do not buy that anyone would abandon iPhones. Like, blind people are not going to fucking abandon iPhones. Have you met a blind person?
No, but hang on, just theoretically.
Yeah.
Theoretically, if society breaks down, A, you have no one producing the iPhones. B, you have no power. Like, I think that's one of the first things that goes.
Well, this is what I
power.
found about. But, okay, so the power, just because people aren't maintaining them, the power?
Yeah, I mean, electricity and power, it's not all going to last forever.
I mean, though that's true, you need to generate a lot less power. Like, there's so many things get scaled down. It's like how if you put, like, thousands of people into a small city, the economy instantly can grow to get everyone jobs, because, like, people both, like, make and create jobs, and the same goes if, like, everyone leaves a place, and that you, like, that kind of thing is very elastic, depending on how many people exist.
And you also have to consider that this sighted world all of a sudden lost its sight.
Right, but then so many people could have STEM degrees. Like, there's so much you have all the, like, you don't have people who had barriers to getting STEM degrees, like blind people are. Like, so you have people with all the privilege who would have had the privilege to get college educations, theoretically, because they don't have to deal with being blind and the discrimination. And then, like, so you have all these people that could really do a lot of work to, like, maintain the infrastructure that we have.
Well, and who knows, and maybe somebody rose up and persuaded a lot of people and killed off all those people. I don't know, the show does not explain it. But that was the problem for me, as I instantly was like, I do not buy this. You have to give me an extreme argument for me to believe this, and it didn't really do any of that. That's what I'm hoping. Jerla Morel, which is such a weird name. Anyway, that's what I'm hoping Jerla Morel will provide, because he's sighted.
Right.
He is our sighted character.
So, because if it is, like, been generations since it happened, I think that what will happen more likely is it will just be like, I think the show's question is, what would happen if everyone was blind in a certain region, and then you had someone who could see, and what would that be like? It's like kind of the idiom of, like, in the Valley of the Blind, the one-eyed man is king, except for it's the more logical version of that, which is, like, the one-eyed man would be, like, the devil, because everyone would be like, what the fuck is you? Like, would be, yeah.
Yeah, but I think the show is also asking what happens when or if society got the chance to completely start over.
Right.
Like, we fucked up.
Right. And what
if we get to try again?
And the show thinks that it would be everyone would decide to start over. I guess for me, I don't think that would happen. I think everyone would say, okay, how do we start over most things? Because we have a much smaller population. But, like, we're going to keep a lot of the infrastructure that's doing much to benefit us, like sewage. Like, there's a lot of value in making sure that continues to happen. And if you've just been through a giant pandemic, you're very aware of how important that kind of stuff is, because, like, that's how you prevent that from happening again. Like, and modern medicine. I mean, there's just so many things that I don't think that there's no way that they would be like, well, fuck this, we don't need this anymore.
Cool. Okay, obviously, we're not going to come to an agreement on this. So, I think we should table this discussion.
Well, yeah, it will
for a
probably
second.
come up as we go
Yes,
on. But that
yes.
was like I thought that throughout the entire like that was definitely every scene I was thinking about
Gotcha.
that.
And
Yeah.
I get that. I do get that. I guess I just found it much easier to just drop into this world and be like, okay, I accept this, that, and the other thing. Because there are so many other things that threw me off. So
That's funny.
Yeah.
I'm always like very thrown off by worlds, and that's just my personality. So I apologize.
That's okay. Well, no, don't apologize. World building is important. Lore is important, and if you don't have a world where you don't have your lore straight, that's gonna show.
Right. Because it is like, a lot of times when you are creating a completely different world, the idea is to like, how sci-fi works. Like it is to make a point. Like that. Like, it really is to make a point. And so when you have your kind of past not really because I think the show is saying this is important because it does mention it a lot. So I think that it is it really does think that this is what would happen, or this makes logical sense to the creators. And so I think that's for me where I'm like, you haven't sold me yet that this is what would happen. But yeah.
Well, and when I found out that the actual plot of the show was it's not necessarily about Baba Voss and how he functions and how their society functions. It is about him and his wife, who we find out who has twins, and the twins are not Baba Voss's. He loves them like they are his kids, but they're not. The twins are actually Jaron Morell's Jerla Morell's kids, which I could not understand what they were saying because they said his name so fast, so it always came out as Jerla. And I'm like, who is that? It's Jerla Morell.
They do say it a million times.
They say
I
it
never
a million
remember
times.
characters' names, but this is one. And also, this does have audio descriptions, and it's a lot of which is great. And then there's a lot of silent fight scenes, so you do hear the characters' names over and over and over again, which did help me actually know what the characters' names are.
Thank God, because there are so many people you have to remember so fast, and it's like, okay, hang on. Audio description for this show I found to be very pleasant and not too distracting, and very nice.
And it is good for remembering the names on top of everything. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So they are not his kids. They are Jerla Morell's kids. And Jerla Morell is the character who can see. So Magda, who is Baba Voss's wife, who came to the village pregnant, and they fell in love, and Voss just accepted her.
Oh, okay, because I was trying to figure that out, because I think they must have said it and I just missed it. But I know that, I thought she, had an affair, but in that, society, it wasn't a big deal.
No, I don't.
But
I
you're
don't
probably
think
right.
so. I don't think her and Jerla were ever married because she
I
doesn't
don't
really love. She doesn't talk about him like she loves him. She's just literally carrying his kids.
Right, but Baba Voss is kind of like the cool dad who's like, I don't care that they're not mine. I just want children.
He is a cool dad. Can we just take a second and just say that Baba Voss is a super cool dad?
I mean, as brutal as all the fighting was, and it felt they did have hostile forces that are very villainous. So I get that you don't always have that much of a choice when people are trying to kill you. But I thought he was he's not that bad of a guy in general. I think
anytime I can hear Jason Momoa address a character or characters as love or loves, I'm just like my heart just melts. It's so great. This is so great, guys.
And he is, and at the last, I think it's the last scene of the first episode where he's the two babies. It's so ridiculous.
It's wonderful.
Very funny.
It's wonderful.
It's very cute.
It's great. It's great. And they're in those little cute little parkas with the fur, and it's great. Yeah. There's a lot I like about this show. I'm really surprised because after the first episode, I was just like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this, but I really like this show.
It's fascinating. I mean, it slightly has. It is weird because it sort of has a train wreck feeling of me where I'm like, I cannot take my eyes off of it. But then it's also some of it, I'm like, oh, it's kind of an interesting way of thinking about it. It is always fun to see how much it would actually I actually agree with the things that the conclusions it makes versus how many I don't agree. But it's like fascinating, and it also makes me think like, what would my version of this be? Like, how would I think it would actually be like?
Also, evil or not, hostile or good, whatever. It is just really cool to see a bunch of blind characters portrayed as confident,
right?
And like they can live. They live, and they've been living their lives. Now, granted, most of these actors, probably all of them, are sighted.
Yeah, it is weird that none of them are. I mean, there's not. We don't cast blind people enough, so there's probably not that many actors around.
Granted, I haven't
in things before.
Yeah, and granted, I haven't done any deep research to find out like which actors are sighted and which actors are not, and if any actors are like visually impaired or anything. Like we know Jason Momoa is sighted, but right. I know, right? No, that's I'll do it. I'll do it next time. I'll do my homework next time.
Yeah, we still have 6 more episodes.
That's
so
true.
We have
that's
time.
True. The first season is 8 episodes long. Anyway, yeah. I was just really, anytime a blind person is portrayed as a real person and they're competent, and I feel like there's someone I can emulate, I'm happy.
What
I'm really pleased.
The most about it also is you have such a wide variety of, because I think that's like something that blind people would never gotten, is like, that idea of like you don't want one person, which is why I thought that tagline would be a funny thing for this episode, because because it's like, I think the problem with ever having a blind character is that then in a show they're representing blind people, and so the fact that you can say, instead of having to be like, okay, what will blindness do to like a person, and so then we'll have this character who's blind, and then we have to think through blindness, and then that character winds up having to stand for like blind people, and like this just doesnn't have to do that, because there's so many different kinds of blind people,
right? It's asking and showing what if there was a society that was like this. And the really interesting thing about this show is the antagonist, Queen Kane, who's sending out the witchfinders, who's looking for Baba Voss's kids. She doesn't want the world to have vision. So it's a really interesting question. Like, is the fact that we are able to see as a society, is the fact that this world that we live in, a visual world, is it a bad thing? If that's what if that is the thing that destroyed our society before, why would we want to make the mistake of doing it again?
Right, which I agree with. I mean, I can, and I would love, and I like that. I do definitely like that it's saying that. That, I think, also with the way that's why I wanted it to be a better reason. Why? Because the reason they give that it is, everything has gone to like a feudalist kind of weird, not even, it's feudalist, I don't even know if that's right, but just very like there's no technology really of any kind. Like almost like medieval, but I don't know. Now I'm realizing I don't know what I'm saying about the different times.
I get it. It's like medieval mixed with like prehistoric.
Yeah, there's like, and there's definitely tribal stuff.
And with some tribal thrown in. It's a
record player is the most like technologically advanced. That's
right.
Thing.
The queen has a record player. I forgot.
How does she have like a generator? Also, I wonder.
Oh, does she? Do they have electric players? Lights? Well,
don't record. Do they? Do you? Yeah. Could you
I mean,
have
the
one
old-fashioned record players are the ones that you wound. Like the first Victrolas, I don't think they ran on electricity. You literally wound them.
Oh my gosh! So it would have to be one of those, or
more than likely, or she's got a generator, or it runs on batteries.
But then, how do you charge the batteries?
Good point.
But yeah, maybe we'll explain that. But anyway, her whole thing is like, I mean, not her whole thing, but I guess the idea is that when all the humans, but say a few million who are blind, died, there was, climate change, and we were creating climate change with all our industry, which, like, if you supported a couple million people, that would probably not create climate change, because it's really the 7 billion people is a big part of why climate change is happening. I think you would, but anyway,
I think her argument isn't life better now because we don't have climate change. Nature has, I'm assuming,
basically we don't have climate change. Is her whole argument.
We're good. We're good.
Her whole argument is we don't have climate change.
Right. Also, I think her motivations are any villain's motivations, any antagonist motivations, which are she has the power. She doesn't want to lose that power. These two, oh God, we failed.
Because that's her real thing is like, is to lose the power, which that part does kind of bum me out, because I'm like, I want a character where I really understand where they're coming from. Like, I want someone who I can relate to saying, I don't want sighted people, because I would be them. Like, that's the position I'd take if I was in this world. Like, so I really do understand their position.
Well, and that's really interesting, having only seen 2 episodes. Like, I'm assuming the further we go into this, we're going to learn more about Queen Kane. I mean, the only things we know about her is she wants power, she's ruthless as all hell, and she doesn't want the people to go back to the light. She's
right.
Totally
she doesn't
fine
want
with
sighted people to come in.
Yeah.
And and I think it is definitely, it's definitely played as way more to do with power, and that it's kind of just an excuse. Like, the climate change thing feels very much, it's like a talking point that's not, which...
This is what she's telling her people to shut them up.
Right. Which it is, and then and it did bum me out that was it. Because I wanted something way more,
and I think we'll get it. I think it's hard to make decisions and judgments now, because we literally have only seen 2 episodes of an 8-episode arc. I hope so. I think that there's definitely, it definitely won't come from her, obviously, because we already know her character. I think that it could come from some of the characters within, like, Bombavas, and what is the name of the mom of the Magda.
Magda, right, okay, yeah. Like, it could come from her, potentially, because she definitely has kind of bought into it, but I do worry that the show is just like, okay, well, it's not reasonable that people would want sight. And I'm like, you gotta convince me that it's not reasonable, because I think it's perfectly reasonable. I want it to be reasonable, because then you have a much interesting show. Mm-hmm. Like, because then it is people kind of really, no matter what, if they're blind or sighted, really having to think about how vision affects. And I think it will make you do that. Like, but I wish that it was a little bit less morally black and white. I wanted there to be so, like, all gray. I wanted it to be all gray.
It's an interesting dynamic, because you have, and I struggle with this too. If I'm in a room full of totally blind people, it's feeling superior. And for me, superior is not the word, but feeling like you have this ability that all these people don't.
Like the sightedness or the blindness.
Sometimes the sightedness, and
right.
sometimes the blindness, but the sightedness. Like, it's easier for you,
to do things,
to perform tasks,
right? Which is why this is such an interesting concept, and why it isn't clear what's right, because, like, someone with sight will have more power, and so someone who's power hungry would feel threatened by that, but also just normal people would feel threatened by, like, you now have power over me in a way that's scary, and, like, it's understandable why people in a blind society would be afraid of a sighted person, like, that seems so rational to me.
I guess my question is inherently, does having sight automatically give you a pass? Does that mean you automatically have power over this person?
You could, but then if you have a society that's, like, blind, that is blind, because I think in a sighted society, yes, you just do, because of the way the society is built. But when the society is entirely blind, then it is not as clear, like, if you would have power, but the threat is real. Like, I think that you could potentially, I think that being, like, a heretic and being feared by everyone, like, it makes sense, because it is, like, a foreign thing that's hard to understand. But I do think you could potentially have power to do certain things, like, that would be frightening to others. And that makes perfect sense to me, that the sightedness would be frightening, because you do have some ability to, like, see how people are feeling. Like, there are certain things in the show where I think, okay, so in this world, no one needs to do this because everyone's blind. And, like, I was saying that all the time. So a sighted person is scary, because all of a sudden they can, like, see people's emotions, and there's all of these different ways of, like, communicating things that people have really taken for granted as, like, how we deal with things in the society, that all of a sudden this person transgresses all of that, and then you have to, like, act differently around them, and there's all these different ways in which that can be scary, and if it's not something you're accustomed to, it's really, like, it can be really scary. And so, like, for me, I'm like, you don't have to convince me that you'd be afraid of a blind, and I wish that the characters who were afraid of the sighted person, I wish the show empathized with them more, because I feel like it doesn't enough. Like, because I'm like, I empathize with them. I understand where they're coming from.
No, and that's really cool. That's a really cool insight, because that did not cross my mind. It's just those characters are painted as evil,
right?
Because they want to take out the good, these two children who've done nothing wrong.
Right. Which and that is why it's not black and white, no matter what, because it's also, they haven't done anything wrong. And it is funny, because I'm like, this is the first time I've ever related to a parent who is, like, I was like, oh, wow, like, parents who make me so mad, who are like, oh, my kid's blind, what am I going to do? I'm like, fuck you. But then I'm like, this is the first time I've ever related to them, because when you have these parents of a sighted kid who's like, I feel bad because my kid's sighted, I'm like, I relate to this so much right now. But then I'm also like, it was weird, because it's just like, it's a backwards world. But it is really interesting, like, being able to relate to someone who's upset that their kid is disabled, when I'm like, yeah, I've never, ever been related to that in the past, but it's interesting.
Yeah, and I'm yes, and I'm not sure if it's come up yet, if we've mentioned, but the plot of the show is Magda has the kids, and the kids can see.
Right.
The kids are both sighted.
That's like the tagline, not tagline, but like the TLDR of like the idea of the show. Yeah. And you kind of see, I mean, there's definitely a chronology of like how everyone is dealing with the situation, because we, like, as we were saying before, she's pregnant, and it starts with her actually giving birth to them. Mm-hmm. And we don't know if they're gonna, in the first episode, we don't really, it's not till the last moment of the first episode that we establish they can see. The babies can see, because the first episode is kind of like, it's slowly.
Well, and in the first episode, the village gets destroyed. They have to relocate.
Right, because there's the army.
The witch finders.
Mm-hmm. Are going into their territory because of the babies specifically.
Yes. Oh, I'd like to point out that most, if not all, of the witch finders ride horses. That's kind of cool. Like, and they're all blind. I mean, everybody is blind.
That's true.
And they ride horses like sighted people.
I mean, but it is like I wonder, the horses I would imagine, do have sight. So, I mean, it's kind of like like a service dog, like a guide dog kind of thing.
Yeah.
Probably.
And I mean,
even easier, because they can just see for you.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm no horse expert. I've only ridden a couple of times, but like, you feel everything the horse is doing underneath you.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes perfect sense that they would, like, that would be a helpful tool to have these mechanical. Yeah, I guess, like, self-driving cars hadn't really figured themselves out by the time they they all got wiped out,
broke down and reformed. Yeah. I just thought I would mention that. But yeah, they're led by an evil leader, and he is going around torturing people and trying to find out information as to where Baba Voss and the twins and the new village is, because they had to relocate.
Right. Or did they relocate at the
end of the first episode?
Right,
yeah.
right. Not before the show.
No. And then the second episode starts with like the village is being built, and so the second episode spans years. Yeah. Actually, because you see Baba Voss in the second episode is walking through the woods with the kids in a basket, and he's basically attacked by a bear.
Yeah, that was terrifying.
I was not expecting that.
I
literally jumped.
And you're
from
like, oh my Alaska, God. So you know how scary bears are.
Oh my God.
I went to Alaska for a week, and I still have nightmares about bears just from like being in Alaska.
Bears are terrifying.
They're so scary.
Because they could kill you.
They could kill you at any time.
You never know. You never know what the bear's doing. Although I was very proud of Baba Voss, because it was a grizzly bear that he was facing, and the strategy, if you are faced with a grizzly bear, at least to get it. I know, right?
I love this.
You learn all of this in school. Anyway, the strategy you are asked to do if you're faced with a grizzly bear, there's two things you can do. You can play dead. If it's going to charge you, if it is charging you or mauling you, you can play dead. Because they don't enjoy dead things.
Oh yeah.
Or
don't you like?
You get in front of them, or not super close to them, but you get in front of them. You put your arms in the air and you try and make yourself bigger, and you talk to them.
Right, because I
Hey,
didn't
bear,
know the
hey,
dead
bear.
one, and at first he is playing dead, so I'm like, get up and scream. That's what you're supposed to do.
No,
but I
it's
didn't know
not.
it's
You play
both.
dead. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then he gets up and he's hey bear, go away. Yeah. So you want to make yourself seem bigger and louder to the bear, because to be honest, bears are more scared of you than you are of them. And most
But
of the
they
time,
also can kill you.
They
so
also
be
can kill
careful.
you. Yes. Most of the time, they will leave you alone and they'll just go back off into the woods or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I was just really scared for the kids. I was
Well,
like, oh my
yeah.
God, the bear is just going to eat those kids.
Right, and then there's like this moment which I thought was really interesting where he needs them to cry, because how could he find them without them crying? But then at the same time, the bear's not going to notice them until they start crying either. And he's sitting there being like, please start crying, but then you're also like, that that's going to make the bear more likely to find them. And so it's just like that race to like who gets to the kids first, like it is. But it's really fascinating, because if you were a sighted person in that position, you would want them not to be crying. And so
Right.
I thought that was really kind of cool.
It was actually a really cool scene. Luckily,
As much as it's terrifying.
as
the
much as
fucking
it's
bear.
terrifying, yeah. Luckily, there's an arrow that comes whizzing by, which thank God I had the audio description on, because I didn't even see that. And then it was like, an arrow goes into the bear. And I was like,
Oh, yeah.
whoa, okay, cool.
It's funny because with my peripheral vision, that one I caught without the audio descriptions.
Nothing. It completely missed me. So the bear is shot and killed, and we find out that Baba Voss's savior is none other than Jerla Morel,
Right.
who's the guy that can see.
Right.
And he lets Baba Voss know that there's a secret cave with a chest inside, and when the kids are 12, you're gonna go to this cave and open this chest and give them the tools of knowledge. Basically, he's talking about knowledge,
Because it's books. But then
It's
actually,
books. Yep.
not to backtrack, but I just realized, is there, I can never say his name,
Jerla, I think Jerla
Morel. Morel, is he the only character are there other characters that have bows and arrow? Because it is a very sighted person. Because I thought, like, that was another thing with the bear, is like, he had to be so close to the bear,
right? Because
to stab him.
Yeah, because all the blind people use close weapons.
Right,
They
right.
have clubs, or like in Baba Voss's case, it's like a meat cleaver on steroids
Right.
that he carries around.
And
That
there's like knives. And
yes, that he also uses as a cane, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is.
He's got
cool.
a blade cane, so that's cool.
But yeah, so
no,
I didn't catch that until just now, that like it is especially surprising that the bear would have been killed that way, because it couldn't have been a blind person, because bows and arrows are very sighted people weapons. That's interesting. I just didn't catch that watching it. Did you catch that?
No, I mean, now that you bring that to my attention, because I kept asking, is Jerla Morel sighted or not? Is he sighted or not? And then literally you said that and I was like, oh my God, of course he's sighted. He has to be sighted to use a bow and arrow. I mean, unless you're just aiming at the sound.
Oh, did they make, because I thought that he was sighted from the very beginning, and I don't remember if that was just because I knew that that was part of the plot.
He has to be sighted. I mean,
right.
he must, because Magda's blind. So how are the kids sighted?
Right, and people were after him, so I just assumed he was sighted. But I might have just assumed, partly because I also knew with the show that was kind of part of the plot of the show, so it might have been that's why I thought that, because I was just like, oh. But I don't remember. I feel like at the beginning they hint at it in some way, because I was like, oh, it's a sighted person. But part of that was I was just like, okay, so there's a sighted person. Who's the sighted person in the show? And so that might have been why I realized it quickly.
I'm looking up the kids' names, because I remember the girl's name, but I can never remember the boy's name. I always want to call him, there we go, Kufun. I always want to call him Kufu, and I know that's not right.
Yeah, their names are also really hard.
Yeah, I kind of like them though. So the girl they name, well, and then Jerla names them.
Right,
like,
he says they have to have this name.
Mm-hmm. He's like,
so
you're gonna
come back some point.
Yeah, he's like, you're calling this one Kufun, and you're calling this one Haniwa. So
Honeywan Kafoon.
Honeywan Kafoon.
Yeah, I literally couldn't, the entire time, I actually could not figure out what either of their names were entirely, like, at any point. Because when people said them, for some reason, my brain was just not parsing their names.
There's a lot of mumbling in this show.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Which is funny, because blind people I feel like they find that kind of annoying.
I did as a visually impaired watcher, but I'm assuming this is
Yeah.
this is a village of people that's been together for years. You know,
they can understand each other's
yeah.
mumblings.
Well, yeah, and they understand the mumblings and the idiosyncrasies of people. I mean,
The idiosyncrasies make sense. Mumbling, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I have family members that I definitely know very well that when they mumble, I'm like, what are you saying? Like, I don't know if I ever really fully understand what people...
yeah, maybe I'm just trying to be optimistic or whatever, but yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting question. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to think if I have personal experience to speak to that. But yeah.
So we see Haniwa and Kufun grow up, and Baba Voss and Magda debate whether they should show the books or not. Paris is all for it.
Right.
She really wants them to have those
witch.
books. Yeah, the quote-unquote witch, yeah.
Which I think, does she identify as a witch, though?
No, she's a midwife. I think.
Well, she is a midwife, definitely.
I don't think I've ever heard her call herself a witch.
There is something about where, oh gosh, you have to tell me the mom's name again. It starts with an M. I keep forgetting.
Magda.
Magda, where Magda says something about, like, you have dreams of the future. But I don't remember if Paris, says... Because they talk about being a witch. Mm-hmm. And I think she might, brush it off, maybe? But I don't think... But it's not like it's only, people coming after. There's kind of, she's playfully a witch. Like, the fact that... even, the people in the village who are on, who are kind of... on her side are saying things about her being a witch, which is why it's hard to exactly pinpoint if there's magic in the show and exactly how it works, because there is things like that where she's a witch, which also is confusing to me, because then it's is it that only the sighted people have magic? It's not, or not quote unquote magic, or because if the sighted people are all considered witches, she kind of sympathizes with sightedness, but at least so far to our knowledge, she's not blind, or she's not sighted.
No, she's not sighted. She sympathizes more with, she sees the books and feels reverence toward them and is excited and happy, and because her grandmother's grandmother told her stories of books.
Right, and there is a weird racial combination, which I don't understand exactly what the point is yet, because you do have that both Jill Morel and Paris are both black characters, and then the other characters are white.
Oh, are you talking about the trope of the mystical black person?
Well, that's definitely part of it, but then it's also just the sightedness and the black, there's because it's almost, I think it's seen as a cultural thing, sort of, sightedness is seen as certain cultural ancestry, I think is what it's saying, maybe. It's not super clear, but I imagine that's I didn't get that at all. It's probably trying to say something like that, though,
maybe,
because you have all these white characters and then you only have two black characters, and they both have a very similar perspective, and you have all the sighted characters, because you technically have four, because the kids are also definitely darker skin than their mom.
Yeah,
obviously.
I mean, I don't know, I guess I didn't really get that or pick up on that as much, because I'm assuming in this world, race doesn't mean shit.
Well, that's what I would think too. But then it is weird that it's just, you don't have enough character. It's not intermixed enough for it to feel because it really does feel like an ideological split also between all this blind white characters, and then so far 3 of the 4 black characters are sighted. So I don't know. It's weird. And then the 4th one is the most, the blind person that is seems most connected to sighted people of all the characters that we've met. So it is like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it's trying to say. Maybe it will say more of that, but there's something there. If it seems weird if that wasn't like, if that was completely an accident.
Yeah, or I mean, maybe these actors just came in and like killed the auditions, and they're like, yeah, we want you.
Right.
But yeah,
this show
I
seems
don't know.
like it's always trying to say something about cultural things, so I imagine, and also blindness. There's always like somehow racial stuff gets mixed in. Into like blind people of different view of race, or I don't know. So I feel like that definitely can happen.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, no, I get that. I definitely am not. I'm not getting like a whole "We Are the World"
definitely
vibe from
not
this show yet. You know,
I don't think, and I don't even think that's what they would be hinting at, because that wouldn't really make sense either. I think they're kind of hinting at like some sort of like I don't know, maybe it's one of those things where a disability metaphor becomes a racial metaphor and you're like, this seems forced. I don't really understand. This is not this. You're doing a thing about disability, not race. Like you can't just do what's the right word? Replace in like substitute this for this. It doesn't work that way. Like there's different kinds of power dynamics between disability and race. Like those are different structures of power.
I think on this subject we might just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's very much like just the seeds of it.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know. We don't know yet if the writers did this on purpose or if it's just a coincidence.
Yeah, we'll see. It is interesting. This will be like, we can't say, oh, I knew this was going to happen. Like this will be an official document of how the two of us were reading this show.
Yes,
every couple episodes. It'll be fun.
Yeah. So Paris remarks about her grandmother's grandmother and the books, the fact that she read books, and I loved that they smelled them and they're like, oh, it's tree bark. Why are we freaking out about a bunch of tree bark? It's just like tree bark. Oh, because it's paper. It's all paper, and it's been in that crate for years, probably.
Yeah, it's very mildewy. I was very scared they're gonna tear out pages because I feel like that's so easy to do.
Well, and then someone mentions burning them, and I was like, oh my god, please don't burn them. That would be so sad. Please don't burn the books.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense that would be something that would come up, because it is, I mean, like if you're doing the witchcraft, I mean, people burn books and it has nothing to do with blindness. Like that's definitely
because books, like Paris says, books are full of ideas,
right? Which also like that's another thing that I'm like, you're kind of negating all the power of oral traditions and passing down.
That's true, but you have to remember, this is a society that was our society, quote unquote, died and is now rebuilt as another society. So and Paris says, I keep hitting the thing. Paris says that my grandma told me about this. So there is oral tradition there. There is oral tradition, and I think that in a lot of ways the books are representative of a document of history more than anything else. But then when it is the knowledge, that I'm like, I think blind people can maintain knowledge. I don't think blindness would stop people from having knowledge necessarily. Again, we do have iPhones and the internet, so oral tradition would come back. I mean, yeah.
Right. Oral tradition would come back. There would be a lot so for me, it seems more like a historical text. And it is funny because when we do see the books near the end of the second episode. Well, and the two books.
Right. Oh no, we'll get to that. Before you say that, because a light literally just came on. In the note in the box, in the not note in the box, it says, start from the top, go in order. Take only what is what is on top and go down.
Right, of the book, not like
of the books. Right. And I was like, what the
like
fuck does that mean? Yeah, and then I realized, oh my god, on the top of the box is ABC books, like phonics, like my first whatever, and then you get to the end of the episode, and the two kids are reading To Kill a Mockingbird and 1984.
They're literally, it's just like a elementary school, high school curriculum. It is so silly. It is so silly.
Okay, but don't think about it like that. Think about important books. We read To Kill a Mockingbird and 1984 in high school, and we read them over and over and over again because they are important books.
Right, but it is just funny because it's like literally just kids like,
oh yeah, this is what they would be reading.
Like it's literally just the curriculum of a high school, which it's just very funny to me.
Well, okay, but no. Here's
when they get to Catcher in the Rye, they're like all these phonies. Like they just become like problematic teens.
They'll just become two goth-sided
They're like
teens.
12.
And
And 1984 is already gonna be annoying.
and no one will know what to do with them. Yeah.
Like the thought policeman.
Oh my god.
And I think the boy has 1984.
Yes,
very
and
stereotypical.
the girl has To Kill a Mockingbird. Yeah. Well, what do you do?
What are you gonna do?
Here's my question
To
though.
Kill a Mockingbird seems thematically very
Correct.
1984. Yeah, I think they are probably because
Well,
both of those are thematically relevant.
Because
So
the queen is literally the witchfinders and the queen are literally the thought police.
And
They
then
slaughtered a village full of people.
and also with
To
To
get
Kill a
their information.
Mockingbird, again, the connection between this and racial politics.
Mm-hmm.
But it is the same thing. And Joe Morrell is like very much what's his name? You know names of the
Which character? Atticus?
Boo Radley.
Oh, Boo Radley?
Yeah, he's the one who needs to be exonerated, right? It's been a long time.
No. Boo Radley is the neighbor. The gentleman who Atticus fights for. Oh my God, you're not gonna believe this. I can't remember his name, but yes.
Oh my
But
gosh.
he's the guy in the courtroom who needs to be exonerated.
Yeah, whatever the character's name is definitely Joe Morrell. Now I have to look it up because it's gonna bother me.
It's gonna drive me nuts too. I'm like, I can't believe I don't remember his name. Yeah. So that's basically how the second episode ends is with the two kids reading
It's
the
like
books.
the second to last moment.
Yes, because the last moment. So, oh my God, we haven't even.
So yeah, we have to go back.
We haven't even talked about Gaither and Sua Bax. Yeah, those are real names.
Oh my gosh! Wow, and I
can't
literally
believe I
the
remembered
whole show
those.
couldn't even figure out what their names were.
I
at all.
know. They came on screen and I'm like, who
Who
are these people? Yeah.
And are they like a couple or related?
I'm getting. Oh no, they're definitely not brother and sister because
because he says something about your cousin. Like
right. Also,
Baba-
we got, according to the audio description, we got some major tongue action. That
Is-
was gross. That was so.
Well,
that was the most
just-
unromantic kiss I've ever seen.
it was
anyway.
very it's very bizarre. But it was also like because I was very confused. Because then like Bamava says to the guy alone something about you and your cousin have been spying on me. So who is his cousin?
Well,
'Cause I'm so confused.
I think it must be Suabax.
Then they were like, so they're cousins?
Yeah, and maybe they're kissing cousins. I don't know. In
guess.
Game of Thrones, a brother and a sister did it all the time. So
Right, but it is like that then.
Yeah,
But it is very. I guess maybe it's Game of Thrones' influence, but it does. But it was very. Yeah. Weird.
Well,
I mean, I guess, the one thing I'll give them is if you did have a giant population decrease, then it is a lot harder to find people who are that distantly related from you after a while. So I'll give them a pass in that one regard, that at least that could make a little more sense, that you would just have a much smaller gene pool. So
who knows?
I'll give them that.
Well, so Gaither has been sending chime bottles down the river, message bottles, that's basically telling anyone who wants to listen, hey, we've got two sighted kids here, you should alert the queen, and this is where we are, and you should come and
because these couple cousins, whatever the fuck they are like really like they're like spies within the tribe, basically, of like people who have kind of from episode 1 were like trying to like play both ways of being like, we're with the tribe, but then they're kind of like dissenters who are secretly
double
like
agents.
Yeah. And then we have to go talk about all the shadow stuff with that
which was
character.
actually really cool. So yes, so they go to the forest, Suabax and Gaither. Any moment I get to say Suabax, I'm happy.
Yes, and can you say it for me too? Can I point at you and you can say it? 'Cause
Say Suabax. I love it.
Suabax to you.
I love it. sewer bags to you. I love it so much. I mean, I'm just like, did they have just a fucking name generator?
Yeah.
We're going to plug a whole bunch of letters in and just see what we get.
Yeah, see what happens.
Okay, so they're in the forest, and there we learn about this tradition. Also, props to Suabax for using a cane.
Oh yeah,
She does use a cane.
Does she like? Is she the one who uses more of a real cane? Like,
Yes, she has an actual like quote unquote staff / cane.
Which, do we have a character that has like a true? Because canes theoretically could still exist.
Theoretically, I mean, we have characters who use what. It's more about using what you have.
Right.
As a cane, like Baba Voss uses his blade, or a lot of characters literally will just use their hands. There's a lot of people just crawl around.
Yeah, and I love how they even have like she uses the cane, and then so she uses the cane, but her name is
Suabax.
and the other one's name is
Gaither,
who puts his hand on.
Suabax.
Yes, like this. To like guide, and so you have like it is like a sighted guide, but it's like just a blind guide who has a cane, which I thought that was cute.
That's really cool. It proves the blind can lead the blind.
Exactly.
So
it's
shut
not
up.
That, yeah, it's very easy.
Yeah. So they come to a special place in the forest to summon a shadow. Now, we don't know much about this character. What we do know is she can't see, and she's basically like a ninja. I think she's the most. Yeah. Hopefully, she is the most quote unquote supernatural character we're gonna get.
That's another thing. Is she definitely is? She's the other character where it is like how much is
is real.
You
and
kind
how
of
much
question
is
the supernaturalness of it.
Yeah. So there's this person in the tribe, or apparently, and they're known as the Shadow. And no one ever knows that they're there.
Though they also, I think it says that they double as an actual person.
Right, as a person, but you wouldn't know that they were the Shadow.
Right.
Because when they're the Shadow, they're silent, and they communicate through click languages. Anyway, they summon her. Her name is Bowlion, which, fight me, that is like the most badass name.
It does also sound like cool. A disease, though.
Bowlion's disease?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It sounds like a virus strain. I don't know.
Well, so we meet the Shadow. Her name is Bowlion. She's this super cool lady.
She is cool.
Super cool. I love her. Like any time we got to watch her on screen, I was like, I could watch her all day. She's so cool. She's covered in white paint, like powder paint, and she just does gymnastics all over.
Yeah, and is it so light on her feet that you can't hear? Because that's why I love that idea of a character, because that is something that if everyone was blind, you could have a silent character. There would be kind of like a spy aspect of that. Like you could watch and then not interact. Like that could be a choice someone could make in a blind world. It is... Another thing I didn't fully understand is why she needed to have the stuff on her and then take it off to be part of the tribe. Because I guess it feels different.
I mean, if someone were to reach out and touch her, you can feel that she has powder on her face or on her hands or on her body.
And does the powder make it so that she seems like she's something other than a person?
I think so. I think the powder is just visual language for she is cool and she is other and she is different. you gotta back it up if you're gonna do that. You can't have a freebie. At least for me, I'm like, you can't have a freebie. You gotta give me a reason. It does look very cool, but like if this is about all blind characters, so anything that looks cool has to also have a reason, because no one cares if things look cool in this universe. That's true. That's true. I mean, maybe
it might be true that the feeling. Cool. Well, no, the feeling is why. Like the fact that it feels different, that she could camouflage herself more easily.
It's a disguise. So if someone touches her as the Shadow,
they might think she's a tree.
Or just, they wouldn't. She doesn't feel human.
Oh, right, because I think they try to touch her. Mm-hmm. But then she says, I wish I had a better sense of exactly what they are. Because it was a little bit, I didn't fully understand all of the rules of her, you know? Like, and I hope that that kind of builds over time, and then it's not just kind of unclear.
I think we'll see more of Gold
Yeah.
Lion. I really do.
I think we'll see
really
more
do.
of her. I hope that like the kind of dynamics of how she works are more clear, because I think it's a really cool idea, and I think that it could be very grounded if you thought it through, and I just wanted to fully understand how she worked, because I couldn't tell if people could feel like because she says you have to be still, like, for me to work with you, basically. And so that kind of makes sense of like, I don't want you to try to touch me when I can't, because she also has to like be blind,
Right.
so
Well, and that explains because when she's not wearing, she's completely nude, like for the entirety of when you see her, she's completely nude, and I'm like, oh, that actually makes sense. She can't wear clothes. She can't wear anything that would make a noise.
Right.
She's the shadow. She's
I
completely
wonder if
silent.
the thing she wears also could dampen sound
like it's
somehow.
Maybe.
No, I hope they explain it, because it could be cool. Because it's like, if it is really, it's really also like the first thing you see of her is like, whoa, like it's just very like striking.
Yeah.
Because you see like that they're in this big green like foresty area,
And then
and you don't see her in the frame. Like she's like, and you see enough of it that you don't feel like there would be something out of frame. And then I don't know if it's that you cut and she's there and that physically doesn't make any sense, like, which could be true, but all of a sudden they're like walking underneath a branch and it like pans up, and then all of a sudden she's just there.
Yeah, this amazing, this striking woman covered in white paint or powder or whatever is just there, and she's extremely otherworldly.
Yeah, it definitely.
She's a creature of the forest.
Which would have, it could have made it more, like, it might have helped me if it was all a fantastical world, because I think that sometimes I just got distracted by thinking, okay, well, this is on a timeline of the real world. Like, because I feel like she would be even cooler if it's, like, a fantasy world, because then you have, like, there is, like, this sort of magical aspect to her, whereas it's a little bit more...
I kind of like the fact that this world is technically supposed to be after ours, because although it would be really cool to see her as a magical creature and as a fae or as a forest spirit or whatever she is, I'm hoping, I kind of like that she's not. She's literally just she's a person. She's just very good at what she does. Right. And there's no magic necessarily. She's that's just her role.
I like that too. I am still not entirely sure if that's the decision the show made, and so I think that's why it's distracting me. But yeah, I really do want that to be true, and I hope it is true, because it is a very cool idea.
I mean, we see her wipe the white paint off very briefly and go back to being whoever she is,
which is why I think there's gotta be something other than the visual aspect of the shadow, because if she wears it when she's a shadow and then wipes it off, and that would be a disguise if people could see, like, but there has to be some other sensory reason for it, because it wouldn't make it would only make sense if there was a sensory benefit of having it on, because but I mean, hopefully we'll learn more about how it works.
Yeah, she's very good at her job, because when they find the crate full of books, she's there in the frame. You don't really notice her until you do. Right. She's just there in the background, and Baba Voss knows there's a presence in the home.
Well, because Paris knows.
Oh, because Paris sensed her. Yeah.
And which they also do deaf-blind sign language.
Right, the language.
Which that was
really cool. I was so happy to see that. I was like, oh my God, of course. Yes, that makes complete sense.
Which is, and it is kind of awesome, because the fact that most people that it would be a little bit more normal to learn deaf-blind sign language, it's just a cool thought, because it is... like such a secretive, it's like whispering, but like for people who, when they have more heightened hearing, it's, I don't know, it's cool. It's like really, because you wouldn't, I think, thinking about this world, unless you were deafblind, it wouldn't necessarily come up as something that people would think to learn, but I really love that people learned it, even who can hear. Is just it's cool. I liked it.
Yeah, no, that was that was a really nice touch. I was really excited to see that.
And it's inclusive for all the deafblind people who do exist in this universe.
Yes. They're well taken care of, hopefully.
I'm sure. Well, no one's like well taken care of, quote unquote, in the show, but but at least they can communicate, which is better than the history of humanity. So.
Yes. But so Shadow Bowlion actually, now that I'm remembering, she actually lied to Gaither and Suabax because she didn't tell them about the books.
Right, she doesn't tell them, but she knows.
So obviously we're going to see her again. Yeah, she has a bigger part to play. I think I'd like to briefly touch on Queen Kane.
We only talked about her.
Yes, so she is
ideological stance.
Yes. She is the quote unquote big bad of the show. I think so. Is what I'm getting.
Yeah, her army is also kind of the the constant threat, and then she's kind of, but it's like that entire kingdom is kind of the big bad, because the army general of her army is also really bad.
Yes,
dude,
not a nice guy.
But we don't really get to we don't learn that much about
bits
him.
And pieces. Yeah, he's coming.
Just like
he's on his
guy
way.
That when he's in the camera, you're like, "Fuck you, dude."
Yep.
You suck.
But Queen Kane is the ruler of this society, and she's interesting because it's really it is interesting to see what like power and being rich is in this new society. Yeah,
the record player is very funny.
The record player. She's a big furry doggy that she sleeps with.
Oh yeah, and she was she playing David Bowie on the record player?
She might have been.
I think it was.
I think it was. I think it was David Bowie.
She has a shaved head.
Yes. Awesome.
It's very cool.
But I think we had to talk about the elephant in the room.
Oh yeah.
So in every episode, or at least the two that we've watched, you get to see Queen Kane pray.
Right.
And she's very much the religious force of
she's like a sun god. Is that, or no, a sun king? That's what I meant.
Something like that. Yeah.
It's like a divine power that is also the ruler.
Yes. So here's what confuses me about the religion, though, is she talks about God, and how God wiped the sight from the world.
Right.
What I'm wondering is, what does that mean, though? Are we talking like Judeo-Christian God? I mean, because obviously nobody can read the Bible anymore.
It doesn't feel like it. It feels more, I mean, it does have like a sort of pagan-y feeling of just kind of like not very organized religion, because it's also not something, if it was far more organized and widespread, then we would have other characters outside of that kingdom. Like, it feels very much like sort of a, kind of the beliefs of that certain kingdom to me, but it doesn't specifically say what, but it feels oh my god, Judeo-Christian. Yeah.
No, I don't know. I'm sure we're gonna find out more, but that was the question that came up.
Just because there's a single God.
Yeah, because I'm like, is she? Because I hear God, but sometimes people refer. I could have swore people refer to gods multiple entities. I don't know. Maybe I'm just mishearing things.
Maybe,
but
it's not. Yeah. It's not super clear.
No,
exactly.
No.
What's going on
I think
with
we'll hear more about it. But I don't want to talk about the way she prays because I don't want to talk about it because it's sensational. I don't want to sensationalize it. I do want to bring this up because I think it is interesting. That
it's like she masturbates.
Yeah, as her prayer.
Yeah.
While she is praying, that is her act that she does. I think it's really interesting because it's literally feeling prayer.
Yeah, no, I thought about that. I think it's very distracting that you're like, okay, this is like,
and now she's gonna masturbate
kind of
again.
like an age. It is kind of Game of Thrones,
yes.
Distracting that it's like, okay, sure.
And we have to watch her masturbate, and it's
right.
I didn't know I signed up for this.
Right. Which, it's just. It's weird, and it feels kind of gross sometimes because there is. It does feel gross in that she'll put other people as.
Oh yeah, in the second episode, like she's like full on like, I want to pray now, and that means bringing in a slave to perform cunnilingus, and I'm like, Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
which is like which is rape, and that's also not sexy.
No.
So.
I definitely don't think it's meant to be sexy. It's not. Like,
It's not, but then you're also just like, it is, yeah, I struggle with feeling like, do we need this?
Right,
So what
right.
is this saying?
It's interesting, though, because masturbation in general is considered, like, in some religious sects or whatever, it's, shameful. It's like, why would you, like, that is the most ungodly thing you could ever do. You should feel guilty. And
So it's very
edgy. Yeah. And here it's like, masturbation brings you closer to God. So it's
Which, I mean, I guess makes more logical sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, because technically you have the whole thing about, like, two partners becoming one, or orgasm brings enlightenment, like that sort of thing. So maybe that is what they're
right. If you,
going
I
for.
guess it's kind of like when you have a more brutal God. When I mean, theoretically though, then you have like a more utopian society where things are taken care of. For if you have a religious thing that's not very law enforcing, like if you have more of a like pleasure centered God, I don't know. I'm just doing weird sociological.
No, I don't know either. I just thought we should bring it up because I
it's
wanted to know what you thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I thought about was like you have I mean, it did actually kind of make me think of the scene in Blind Dating with that you have the like the therapist who gets naked, like that there is like a weird thing of like, okay, well, part of like why people wouldn't masturbate into public places because like to see someone doing it is very like feels not great to people who are in the vicinity. So there is a kind of weird like a lack of voyeurism that you would have in a completely blind society. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what it made me think of. Yeah,
but I mean, you don't see anybody else doing that.
Right, right. And that's the thing.
It's literally just her. So I'm like, is this something that she just came up with? Like, this is, I have my own little, I'm the queen, I have my own little sex cult, and this is what we do now? I don't know.
Because it does feel very much like, it doesn't, like we were saying, like it's not, it feels very much like a power thing more than...
Oh, a sexual thing. Yeah.
Right, which is, it is kind of like, yeah, and I think that's why for me, I was like less excited by it, because it's just like, I don't know, I want it to be less of a rapey thing. If you're going to make some comment, then it being rapey feels not as good.
No, yeah, and I mean, I guess, she's experiencing power, and she's also getting off. So I don't know. I really don't know. We will probably find out more.
It does feel kind of like edgy. Like, we are not. Yeah, you're Jesus. Yeah.
Her voice is interesting too, though. Her voice is she acts with she has a very soft voice, but it's also incredibly threatening.
Yeah.
Like, she seems like this frail little thing, But
then she's also... I guess her having the shaved head, though, part of that did make me sad, because I'm like, there's not enough short-haired characters that you like in things.
I like that her head is shaved, though. I don't know. But I like
I like having
that
characters that were with heads shaved. I just wish more of them were the one we're supposed to relate to the most.
Oh, yeah.
Because it made her feel masculine in a way that's, like, saying if a woman tries to be more masculine, then she's obviously evil. Like, which maybe is reading more into it than is. But I think that's kind of, like, there's just a very light version of that was probably the decision to make her, like, not have hair. It's not, I'm sure it wasn't as extreme as that, but I'm sure it was like it makes her more masculine, kind of.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as powerful, she also has an elbow dagger.
Which
that was a fun little surprise.
Why is it in her elbow?
I have no. Maybe she just woke up one day and was like, I want a skin pocket. I mean, it's literally a skin pocket. It's
so bizarre.
Because the audio description was like she pulls a knife from her elbow, and I was like, wait, hang on.
Yeah, which I would love to know exactly what that means, because it is too small for me to be able to see what is actually happening.
I think I caught it. It's literally the hilt is like sitting flush with her arm, and there's literally a pocket.
So it's like what I have with the implant for birth control.
Yeah, but imagine that
you can take it
out and stab somebody with it.
Right.
And then
without
put it back in.
needing to have like someone do the thing with your arm. Because you can't take it out theoretically, but it's like you have to have
bleed everywhere.
something. Yeah. Or you just need a doctor with a special machine thing. Yeah. Which, she just takes out of her arm. Which I was just like...
So like
why?
she's a skin dagger. Okay.
Like I didn't fully. It doesn't. Is it a blind related thing? It didn't feel
I don't
like
know.
it to
I
me.
don't.
It was unclear.
You can't deny that it was kind of sort of badass though. Like this frail woman, and she sees a messenger that lies to her, basically that misreports a message.
Right, and so she. I was just really grossed out. I don't know why,
it's
but it
gross.
like made
It's
me
gross
because I don't like when people are like brutally stabbed, but then I was already grossed out by the fact that it's in her arm. It just really bothered me. I don't know why it really, and it also just felt like part of it was like, how do you not hurt yourself constantly? Like that just seems the least ideal way of having a dagger, because you're not protecting your skin from it at all. I was just so confused how that works.
I have no idea. Maybe it's scarification. Maybe she just is...
She just stabs it in her arm. It was the most... Yeah, exactly.
No,
that's what I thought.
I mean, my elbows hurt just talking about this. But no, it was literally like a pocket or a hole in her arm that she fucking pulled this knife out of. Super weird.
Gross.
It's really gross. But she slits the guy's throat and he dies. But yeah, I don't know. She is a really interesting character because then she kills the two dissenters in the kingdom.
She sets them on fire.
Yeah. She electrocutes them and then sets them on fire.
Oh, yeah. So she does have electricity.
Okay,
so that's
yeah,
how
she
she's
does.
powering the record player.
So that makes sense.
It.
We figured it
out.
Yay! Yeah, she electrocutes them and then she sets them on fire.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a lot. She's a whole lot.
She's a whole lot.
She's too many things. I honestly am just like, what is going on with her? There's not really a... She's not a cohesive idea.
Somebody hurt her. I bet you that's going to be a plot line. Like somebody betrayed her or did something to her or something. I mean, maybe she was Journal Morell's first lover or something. I don't know.
You might be right. I think there's probably something like that relating to him. I think they sort of hint at something like that she had an experience, or that maybe a family member did. Or does she say that like one of her family members was killed by a sighted person or something? Is that what it? I think she says something
like that. I don't remember.
Wrong.
I don't remember those words, but yeah, I don't.
There's something where it's kind of like hinted at, but it was hard to follow because I'm sure that they'll be like they're hinting at it now, and then they'll be more clear later on. But something's going on with her with that, but it also is kind of like you don't really need that. It could just be that she wants to maintain power. I mean, like you kind of set that idea up, so you don't really need extra stuff. So I was like, okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah. No, we will find out. We will find out. But yeah, those are the first two episodes of C.
Are we? I feel like there's a lot going on, so I think I'm sure we're missing something. I mean, I think we didn't fully get the end of near the end of this second episode where we have kind of stuff with Paris and the dynamics of her and Baba Voss.
Right. Oh, you're right. Because because obviously the kids get the books because Paris goes behind Baba Voss's back and gives them the books.
Which Baba Voss, it's like more, it's more distinctly, why can I not remember her name?
Magda.
Magda. Okay. It's like manga, but with a D. Okay.
Yeah.
Just
Magda.
need a mnemonic device.
Yeah. There you go.
So Magda's the one who Paris really goes behind her back because like we see Paris and Magda talking and Magda says Baba Voss and I have decided that we are just going to raise them because before this they raised them up until 12 to pretend to be blind, and I really like that part. I hope that it's more that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I thought that was cool.
I hope that the kids use their sighted abilities and their non-sighted abilities as well, like to be blind, because it's it's the reverse
Right,
again.
right,
You
exactly,
literally
that
have
whole
to
thing.
teach. Yeah, you literally have to teach your kids
To
how
pretend.
to pretend, how to operate in a world that doesn't have sight.
Which I love that, because I was like, because it's one of those things where I could, for the first time, simultaneously relate to all sides of the argument, because it's very easy to relate to the kids as being like, that was my life. I had to pretend I was a sighted person and like couldn't be truly who I was, and the people around me were telling me this was a bad, it was seen as a bad thing and something I should be ashamed of and something I should hide. Like, I mean, I guess ashamed of is kind of strong, but like the fact that I did have to hide it, like, so it's so unbelievably relatable in that way. But then at the same time, I understand why in a blind world sighted people would be threatening, and how I would have trouble knowing exactly what side of this I'd be on, because I would feel like, okay, so now I have to worry about people who can do things that I can't, and can kind of transgress the society, and also just living in the society we live in. Like, the idea of having all blind people, there's a lot of things where we're like, oh, that would be nice. I would really value that and feel threatened if that really was my world.
And then they go off together by themselves to read the books. Because
right, and then like reading, and like the fact that they're into, and I'm like, no, don't give them a fucking book. We don't need reading. I don't want to fucking hear people reading. I hate, like, that's my whole life. So I so understand. Like, it's so easy to relate to people being like, don't let them read. I'm like, yeah, I don't want it. Like, you live in the perfect world where no one has to read, and you have to fucking add reading. Like, so it is like, I so deeply relate to both sides of the argument.
And I absolutely get that, because I thought of you when the books came out, and I was like, oh, Sky's gonna have a field day with this. But I'm coming at it from the point as not the book is a physical object, but I'm thinking about it as what the book contains. They deserve the right, and they have the ability to find out what these things contain.
But then it's their they have privilege. Like, they have knowledge. I mean, that's like the whole idea of like college not being available to blind people. And then it's like, that's not a fair society. And I think that you're just creating that same power dynamic, because now they have knowledge that other people can't access. And instead of making it more accessible, you're just giving it to certain people, which is the problem with the world we have now.
Well, and hopefully they would make the choice to make the knowledge available,
but we don't.
But that's
we don't know if we can
the
trust
question.
them, and
right?
that's like the hard part.
Yes, that's the question. Is knowledge is power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Right.
With great power comes great responsibility. I mean, there's all these like mantras and everything. So are these two kids, now that they have all of this knowledge, like, it's up to them. They can either disperse it or they can wield it like a weapon.
Right. And it is a Pandora's box, and I very much understood why there was a bunch of characters that were very reticent to open that Pandora's box.
And it makes me happy to see that Haniwa, can still read the not language. Like, they can still communicate and read, because that's what they've been taught.
Right. And that's what I liked. But I think that also speaks to how those power dynamics, there is reason to be concerned of the power dynamics, and that they just have more. They just have more ability to do things. Like, and so they can kind of work within both the society and then have like extra abilities. But at the same time, it also makes it seem like they're more like blind people, and that they are they need to have the same knowledge of all the, the same customs as the society that they're in that's built on blindness, but they have like a different way of perceiving the world. And so that makes them more like blind people. So I think that's really cool. I wish the whole show was just like, this is all that stuff is I think where it's great. And then all the stuff with the random power dynamics and climate change being the thing that's good about everyone being blind, which makes no sense to me. Like, why would climate change? I mean, like, I don't know any blind people really are like very climate change people.
Well, but I mean, I kind of get that, as far as we're really messing up the earth. We're really, oh God, let me get on my soapbox for a few minutes.
Yeah, you can be the climate change blind person. This is good.
Because because I'm from Alaska. I mean, I literally seen it happen. Well, seen is in quotation marks, but
I grew up in a drought. I mean, it's definitely, I worry about it a lot. It's not, yeah. So I do agree.
There is a part of me that's like, if like with what's happening right now with all the quarantine and everything, fossil fuel emissions have gone down because people aren't driving.
Well, yeah.
That's awesome, you know?
Right.
So there's...
Driving, definitely.
Right, but there's...
You could have a better bus system, though.
Sure,
well,
sure.
no,
That's
you
a whole
couldn't.
nother
You
issue.
need them to run themselves.
Right.
This is why it's an interesting thought experiment, generally, too. Yeah.
I guess I'm coming at it from the perspective of... sometimes it might be nice to have the thought of experiment of like if humanity and technology was just like gone, you know, then maybe the earth would heal itself.
Right, and
again.
it would like that, and I think we do know that. I mean, a smaller population definitely would create the amount of good that would do for returning the climate back to normal is vast, like, because it really is like a few million people are not going to be a problem. Like you could still do stuff and not worry about that. Also, like, if you take away buses or you take away cars and planes, because it would be, depending on how mechanized they could have become at that point, like, because it just is the 21st century, so it could technically be like that everyone was, you know, killed by the coronavirus. It could be now, like, we don't really know, some kind of nebula, but it also could be like 50 years from now, so we could have much better self-driving technology, but you would just most likely wouldn't be able to do cars and planes. And so those would, I mean, done. Climate change over. Like, you don't need to do anything other than that. Like, if you took away cars, planes, and also there's only a couple million people, like, you really could do whatever you wanted and it'd be fine.
You also have to, and you'd also have to stop mining and fossil fuels. So, like, no more coal mining, no more oil mining, or no more oil digging.
Just because you didn't have access to cars and planes, or because you would guess also need electricity somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying, like, full stop, like, on everything.
Well, but I'm wondering how much you can still do and fix climate change, because I think, like, just having that big of a reduction in population, like, that's enough. Like, that would just stop climate change, because 7 billion people is part of the problem. Like, 2 million people and none of them can use automobiles. I just can't imagine. You could still do fossil fuel mining and be fine. Like, it would be almost impossible to be a problem at that point, because the climate can definitely handle 2 million people who cannot drive or fly planes. Where is it all coming from?
Yeah, I guess I definitely didn't take into account, like, the population is very, very, very small.
Right, which I think if they didn't make it, because it also really always bothers me anytime a story hinges on such a small population from a disease, because that is not how diseases work. You literally, like, the plague at the biggest estimates knocked out 60% of, I think, Europe. I don't know if it's actually the whole world population, but even if it was, like, there's never been a disease that wiped out more than, like, 60% of the world's population. It would be on the extreme end, and those are all medieval, because once you have more sewage, it's impossible for it to get that big. Like, you know, when you have the kinds of sanitations and the vaccines and the medicine we have, like, there's just no fucking way you could possibly have something. And now we know that, you know, all countries can just go down into lockdown, and that does also stop the spread of, like, especially contagious diseases. And, like, most of the most brutal ones you have to have bad sanitation to have them spread, because they are not spread in the same way that, like, the coronavirus is spread, and things like the flu or the coronavirus are things that don't kill that big a percentage of people. I
think in the ramifications of this show, it's a plot device. It's a plot device. I don't think it's really gonna warp people's understanding of how a disease or population works.
I don't know, though, because I think that media, and maybe this is just me being, like, growing up in LA and making movies, and so I'm always just like, well, you know, Hollywood has all the power of our minds or whatever. But I do think it does make an effect. Like, I think that, you know, there's a reason why we've had, like, Reagan and Trump as presidents. Like, TV, like, people, it matters, like, what's on television and what's in movies. Like, it does affect people's psyche and the way they view the world. And so I think that, like, little careless things like that it's something that I've heard a lot of people with the coronavirus so many conversations I have with people bringing up stories that they've read or things that they've watched about infectious diseases where it killed almost all the population. And it keeps bothering me because it does matter. Like, people think about that when it's happening in the real world, and it's just not accurate. And I know that, like, you know, it's an interesting device, I guess, for a story, but I wish it was just more accurate, because I think it really does affect people's, like, how scared people can get, and like, and when people are scared, they're not always acting the most rationally, you know.
I suppose this doesn't hit me that hard, because that's not what the show is about.
Yeah, this is my Michigan.
The show is not about the disease or the virus or whatever that made society this way. It's about the society. But I get it. Like, I'm not trying to say that your point isn't valid, because that's not.
No, you're totally right, though. It's not about it at all. And it is my Mishgas, and it is that I am distracted by it, because it is my Mishgas, and I'm the one distracted by it.
How can you not be distracted when you turn on the news, you turn on the radio? Like, it's everywhere.
It's really true. It is very big in our heads right now as well.
But what I hope this show doesn't become is about how sighted is better than blind.
Yes, and I'm worried about that as well.
Yeah, I don't think that just because you're sighted or you're blind, that shouldn't make you a better person. And maybe, and you know, like we've been saying, maybe that's just what this show is going to play around with, the power dynamic between the perceived power dynamic between a blind person and a sighted person.
Yeah, and it is. I think my guess is going to be that it's going to think it's being more morally gray and questioning than it actually is, and a lot of, like, kind of unconscious bias are going to come through in the writing. That's my prediction, because it's not very, it's kind of a muddled idea. They're not coming in with a very crisp idea of what they think is true. Like, I think they're kind of just throwing some stuff out there. Well, and so we'll see.
That's usually, and that makes sense, because that's usually what a pilot is. And maybe the first or couple episodes after that is usually a pilot is, we're just going to do it. We're going to
see what they think.
Throw you into the world. Yeah.
Which is totally fair.
Yeah, and I mean, writers can make different decisions, and characters will develop, but, you know, different things. We just have to watch more, I think, to find out. And actually, after watching this and talking about it with you, I'm actually pretty excited to keep going. I want to know what happens.
Do you feel like having this conversation from the beginning to end has changed, like, how you're thinking about it, or do you feel like?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm definitely going to notice the power dynamics more. And
this is kind of fun, because it's like if we watched 30 minutes of a movie and then we both talked about it and then watched, because now we're getting a sense of what each of us thinks about it, and then getting to watch more of it. So it's cool. Sorry.
No, that is really cool. No, we can come back and talk more about it, what's going on, and how I'll be interested to talk about how the characters develop.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, because it's gonna be interesting, because I mean, will the sighted children, like, surpass Baba Voss in, like, his ability to protect them? I mean, they can use a bow and arrow. Like, they can do they can do certain things that he can't, or that he would have a very supreme difficulty doing. Right,
and that can give them genuine power in certain situations. Yeah, I really hope it's not too racially, because if you have, then it's just gonna get so muddled, like, because if you have the sighted characters, which could definitely wield power, but then it's a metaphor for like the power exerted against, like, racial minorities, then that's just gonna be like feedback that a speaker, like, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't make sense.
I'm really hoping that it's not.
We'll see.
But that's literally just like blind faith that it isn't going to that it isn't.
I'm just
very
cynical, so I also probably am more worried about things before they are even a thing. I've definitely been like, I don't know about this, I'm worried about this, and then it's also, I'm just reading too much into it.
I definitely need to watch 2 more episodes before I feel like I can make that decision.
Yeah. And I definitely, this is just me from seeing the beginning and wondering what the writers are doing. I think I also watch TV shows from I'm like just being like, okay, so I'm just getting to see the 2 episodes on the board of like what we've done for the whole season and how is this affecting this, episode 8 and where we're going. And like, I'm just thinking like a writer's room, and then I just don't have all the information. So I'm just trying to, it's like kind of my eyesight, just have bits of pieces, and then I'm filling in the rest with my mind.
Yeah. No, we don't. We have all these questions, and we don't know where this is going, because we literally only got a chunk of the season of what this story is telling. It's a TV. It's different than a movie. It's not a self-contained story.
Yeah. And it's definitely will mean that they can at least, they have the opportunity to do more fleshing out of the world and like thinking more about the, the logic of things and maybe why it's more hard to understand exactly the position is because it will be more, they want to explore different angles of this idea, and they're not just saying like, I want to get from, we want to get from this idea to like this idea. It's like they're trying to like kind of circumvent it. So that could be interesting.
Yeah, no, I'm very much looking forward to watching more episodes. I'm glad this show isn't terrible.
Yeah.
I'm really glad, because, man, this could have been really, really awful. And it's not. I mean, it's I think there are parts that are a little sensational, but
it's a little bit sort of melodramatic. Like there's a cheesiness in some ways to it. Like and I am also like very, I like my ironic, detached, subtle things where I'm just like very, I just kind of always find it funny when there's too much of like characters being really caring about things where I'm like, wait, what? Why do you care so much about this? I mean,
well, only because it's super important. Yeah,
right. At least the show is like, it does give a higher stakes. It doesn't have as much of a lightness of touch that is just normal of humans.
Oh no!
That's what I wish.
This show is a drama with a capital D.
Yeah,
there is very little humor. I mean, I think I found myself chuckling to myself, but that was just about things that I was thinking about. That wasn't really necessarily things that the characters were doing.
Funny.
Yeah.
It is, which I mean is the one sad thing about that is blind people are very funny people. We have a very keen sense of humor, and like I think we come up with jokes that other people don't always think of, and so to have all these blind characters and none of them have a sense of humor, that doesn't suspend my disbelief. They would have a sense of humor.
Well, sure, but I think it's about the story that the writers want to tell, and they don't. They don't really want to tell a story about a very comedic, self-aware group of blind villagers. But hey,
because blind people so unself-aware. All the blind people I know are very unself-aware people. No, I'm just kidding. If you don't know that many blind people, I feel like we're very I feel like blind people are aggressively self-aware. I don't know if you agree with that, but yeah, it's definitely, well, because I guess if you can't see, you're just focusing. You're thinking about how things are being perceived more because you're not perceiving as much of the outside world. So I don't know. There's, yeah.
I don't know if we can give this our traditional rating, because we've only seen the first little bit of it.
Yeah, we could. Oh, you know what? Like, if you keep going to the eye doctor over time, we can like see if its blindness is progressing. So we can still give it an acuity test, but it's just like yearly checkup. Yeah. So we'll see. This is like when it's a kid, and we'll see how if its eyes get better or worse.
I like it. Cool. Yes.
So to explain our rating system, 2020 would be the rating of something that has no input of blind people, that is very sighted oriented, and even though it has a blind character, it basically is, there's no ideas of blind people, because 2020 perfect vision. Legal blindness 2200, that's like decent, hitting the mark of like a good like thought about blind people, and like doing a decent job at representing us. And then anything above 200 is just super good overachiever. We love them.
They knocked it out of the park.
Yeah. So what is your rating?
I'm sitting firmly right now. I think at a 2200. Yeah, mostly because all of the characters on the show are blind.
Yeah.
I mean, I
true.
honestly cannot.
Well, most of them.
Most of them, yeah. Sorry, there's a couple that aren't. Most of them are. I honestly cannot tell you another show that has where you see that much blindness.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. Yeah.
So I'm seeing that is pretty amazing. Makes me pretty happy. So yeah, we'll see where if the rating changes or not as we go, as we watch more of these. But for now, I think that's where I am.
Nice. Yeah. So yeah, I was thinking I might give it like honestly like a 20, a 60. Like which it's hard because I think that maybe this is me not playing exactly, because I think there is a decent amount of like thinking about how blindness works and having characters where they're trying, you know, to think about what a blind society, and that is like a fun like thought experiment that I love to do. I think maybe the fact that just the dynamics of it are not how I would imagine it to be, and that the kind of the questions that it poses I wish were in some ways more nuanced. I really do like some of the stuff of like, because it is just something that I've always believed, like if everyone was blind, then a sighted person would be a witch, basically. Like, so I do like, and that is something I've always said. And like, truly, I've always said that, and it is nice. I mean, so that's why I'm like, why am I giving it such a low rating? Because I'm like, that is a thing that I've tried to tell people. I know this is true, so I do appreciate that they also thought that.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I thought you'd at least give it a 100 or low. You know, maybe a little lower than that. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, no,
that's fine.
I think
that's fine.
It's interesting because I think part of it is it's like you know how like when a teacher who like thinks you are like really thinks highly of you will give you worse grades on things because they're expecting more out of you. I think that might be what's going on, because I'm also like, why am I giving it such a low rating? And I think that like because it is doing so much of like representing how blindness could be and how it works, I think I might be holding it to a higher standard of like thinking, okay, so like I'm expecting a lot more out of it than I would normally of a blind portrayal. So yeah, that's my caveat to that. I think that like maybe it's like a 2060, but that has what is the thing where, you know, how much tunnel vision you have, the like angle of your vision, because I have all my my peripheral vision's the vision I have, so I've never gotten that number because they're always like, you have perfect peripheral vision. So, but there is like an angle number of like how much of your field of vision you can see. So maybe it's a 2060 for acuity, so it can see pretty well, like far away, but it can like, but it is like has enough tunnel vision that it could still be considered like, this is my taking it too far thing. But I do think that like, it might just be that I am, asking it to do a lot. But I think it's a really interesting thing to think about, and I am very interested to keep watching because I do want to see how they address it more. And I think there's also going to consistently be more to say about how they are continuing to represent it. I don't think it's like it's put out cards on the table. So I think as we go, like each episode will still have a whole lot to talk about, I think. So I'm really excited for it as well. So
that's good.
Yeah.
That wraps it up in a nice little bow there at the end. Nice job.
It's like we're podcasters.
Very
all
concise.
Of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you know?
Look at us.
Yeah.
So I guess we can announce what we've decided our next movie is going to be.
Yes, the movie we are doing next week is Onward. We're doing Onward. Yay.
I love how we're getting into the names that are just easy to use in a sentence.
Yeah. There's nobody named Sua Bax in Onward. I can tell you that.
Well, I meant the names of the things we're watching. So we're watching C and then Onward. Those are just very easy. They're also just kind of like explorer things. You could be like, C over there, Onward.
Onward. Yes. And if you want to watch along with us, you can watch C. You can watch all episodes of C on Apple TV Plus. It's a streaming service. It's $4.99 a month, I believe.
With a week trial?
Yes.
They don't do a month anymore for some reason?
Just a week. Well, however, if, like myself, if you bought a Mac device, any Mac device in the past, 90 days, they will give you a year of Apple TV for free.
Which I knew about last time I bought a device, but it wasn't in any way recently enough. But that's I guess we're now plugging Apple TV. If you're interested in this, I guess.
If you wanna watch the show, if you wanna watch C along with us, Onward can be found. You can get it either for purchase off of iTunes or you can stream it on Disney Plus.
Yeah. From now on, just do streaming platform only things.
I got
At least we're probably going to have audio descriptions for all this stuff.
Yes.
Because usually Pixar, they have the audio descriptions and most of the streaming platforms are audio descriptioning all their shows, which is great.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Super, super cool. Cool. So, join us next week when we talk about Onward.
So we go Onward. But, yeah. And then we'll keep seeing what's up with C. I hate this. I'm done. So next is a dope thing.
Right, dope things this week.
Yeah.
I've got one ready. If you're
ready. Go.
Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna pull a Sky, and I'm gonna talk about a bunch of podcasts that I've been listening to that have literally been giving me life this week because of all of the not going out.
You need life too.
I do need life. Now I can't remember if I've mentioned this podcast before. I've talked about Dungeons and Daddies. So still listening to Dungeons and Daddies.
That was last week.
Yes. The other one that I wanted to talk about though is Real Friends, Fake Doctors.
What is that?
Oh, it's fantastic. So I'm sure everybody remembers a little show, little show called Scrubs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
I know about this show.
Yes. So Zach Braff and Donald Faison, JD and Turk, respectively, are best friends in real life, and they are doing a rewatch podcast. So they are giving you all of the nitty-gritty, all of the down low, all of the fun shenanigans that happened during the filming of each episode.
Oh my gosh.
It's a weekly podcast. I wish it was a daily, but whatever. It's a weekly podcast. Apparently they're going to watch everything. They're starting on the very first episode of season 1, and they're going to go all the way up to the last episode of season 8 or 9, I believe, season 9.
Wow.
And it's fun, and they're really like loose, and they don't take it too, they don't take things too seriously. Like they were making fun of the 9th season of Scrubs because, to be honest, the 9th season was not good, not good at all. So that's Real Friends, Fake Doctors, and it's amazing. And I'm listening on Stitcher, but you can listen to it on any podcast platform that you choose.
We do not discriminate podcast platforms here. I'm Overcast, but I will respect anyone's choices.
I'm just Stitcher because Stitcher is the one I've been used because I refuse to use the Apple app, so whatever.
Oh, I do too,
Yeah.
but that's why I'm an Overcast. I was Downcast for a while, but I Downcast and Overcast. The Apple one sucks. But the Apple one sucks, but we do respect you if that's the one you use because it's easy. Some people, you have a busy life. You don't have time to figure out exactly the podcast catcher that you like.
If it's
that
not
works
on,
the best for you.
Yeah, if it's not on Stitcher, I will occasionally moonlight over to the Apple Podcast app. So I was listening to the Joe Exotic podcast on that.
There's
app,
a
actually.
podcast?
Oh yeah. Okay, so maybe I brought 3 podcasts with me and couldn't remember the third one, so maybe that was the one I was going to talk about.
You talked about Joe Exotic in a past.
I did.
One,
this is the Wondery podcast. It's a podcast.
Is it like just telling the story but in podcast form?
Kind of. It's definitely reported differently than the documentary was. So I would say it's a really nice supplement to go with the documentary. So you can watch the documentary first and listen to the podcast, or you can do it in the reverse order. Yep.
Anyway, sorry to take you down that rabbit hole.
No,
but yeah.
that's okay. So yeah, what I brought to the table this week is Real Doctors, or Real Friends, Fake Doctors, with Zach Braff and Donald Faison, and the Joe Exotic podcast from Wondery.
Awesome. And I'm going to do a podcast that's called Real Doctors, Fake Friends.
Just two real doctors who absolutely hate each other.
Yeah. Just very passive aggressive because I hate doctors.
Oh my God, that would be like Jamie and Adam from Mythbusters.
Yeah, it's going to be very fun. It's my two favorite things, passive aggression and doctors. That's like kidding, and those are my least favorite things ever. But yeah, so that's awesome though. My thing is a TV show from Australia. It's called Please Like Me. It is it's like created and stars an Australian comedian whose name is Josh Thomas. I did an actor person for you because you're so good at that. You're inspiring me to remember. But it also has Hannah Gadsby is one of the characters as well.
Love her. Okay.
It has been such like a comfort food for me because it is like very sweet. It like has a lot of it is both like about in the first episode, to kind of give a sense of the plot, Josh, who the characters are mostly, I think, have the first names of the actors. So in the first episode, the first scene, his current girlfriend breaks up with him because they've been together from high school, and is like, "You're gay. We can't date anymore." And you know, I love you, but you're gay. You should be gay. And so they break up, and then he like meets a guy and like sleeps with a guy for the first time, and then at night while they were asleep, his mom attempts suicide, and then he has to go to the hospital to just be dealing with that. And so it's like very good pilot launching of just throwing all the things in there. But so the show has a lot of like characters who are like in and out of the hospital for mental health stuff, and it is just, but it's also just a lot of like cute boys and just like sweet romances. It's very lighthearted, like and sweet and funny, and it's like when everything is scary in the world and also I feel very isolated, it's just very, very comforting to me. So I've been really enjoying that. So that is called Please Like Me. It's an Australian TV show, and it's on like Hulu. So
sweet. That was my next question. Is like, okay, where is it?
Yes,
'Cause I really want to watch this. This reminds me of another show. Have you ever seen Man Seeking Woman?
Yeah, I really like that show.
I love that show so much. It's just so bonkers.
It was weirdly slept on. It is like, it's
right?
Incredibly endearing.
Yeah, well, I also think Jay Baruchel is adorable.
He's so cute.
You know,
he's such a cutie.
Yeah,
and I just love that's one of those weird shows where like it didn't make any cultural mark, and I think about it all the time.
I guess that's a bonus one. Is like, hey, you should totally watch Man Seeking Woman. It's great. That's also on Hulu because they're doing the whole FX on Hulu thing, which is awesome.
Did I watch it on Hulu?
I did.
I think I did because I watched it a little bit ago. But yeah, that is a great show, and it's also like one of my favorite. It's a great like magical realism, especially for for a live action show. But yeah, so that's our whatever number episode.
Yeah.
Seventh? That's our seventh episode? Something like that.
I don't know. What do numbers mean? Numbers, it's an arbitrary ranking system anyway.
Well, chronology is not entirely arbitrary.
Well, yeah,
it's pretty.
I was making a joke, guys. Making a joke.
My joke is just to be like, whoa, a disease wouldn't kill.
That's
like,
your joke.
All 6 billion people. This is my idea of humor. Nice. Anyway, so our theme song was written by Lucia Fasano, who is fabulous. Definitely check out her music. Our Twitter is @WhiteCanePod. Our Instagram is is Citizen White Cane. You can send us an email at citizenwhitecanepod@gmail.com. We also have a way to send us voice messages, which we would love. Tell us if you've see if what your like idea of an all blind world would be like and what cool stuff would happen. That would be so dope. Please send us that kind of stuff. And you can find the link in the show notes for that, for sending us a voicemail. And then you can like rate and subscribe to our podcast. You can give us 5 stars.
That would be nice.
And leave a review of how cool we are.
We're so cool.
Yeah, we're very cool.
Also, if you have any ideas of media involving blind folks, we would love to know. And don't think that you have to leave it only to movies and TV. Especially for me, I'm always willing to read a good graphic novel or a book or something about someone who's blind.
Yeah, though we'll have to talk about if I'm willing to do that.
That's true.
If it's on audio,
that's
I'm
just
willing.
me personally. Please send me more stuff to do.
Then we will have a podcast that's like a bonus podcast where just Melissa talks monologues about something,
about a comic book I read. Yeah.
It could be fun.
Great. That could be a lot of fun.
But yeah, send us that, and you don't even have to send a voicemail, though you can for that information. Like you can hit us up on any of the stuff I just said. Awesome. Well, thanks for listening.
Thanks. See you next time.
See you next time. Bye. See you next time.
See you. Oh.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.